Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dr. Bree TV. I am so excited to have you here as always, and so excited to share my expert interview with you today. I have Susan Clinton with me, and she is a physical therapist extraordinaire based in Pennsylvania. And I'm going to let her really do most of the introduction, but I can tell you that Susan teaches Doctor of Physical Therapy students, she practices, and she has a really strong interest in, of course, pelvic health, women's health, and also GI health, gut health, which, as you all know, I love talking about gut health and gut issues. So does she. And she also has a really fascinating thing that I want to, a specialty and special interest in the pelvic floor and glottis connection, the area up here. And you might be wondering, like I am really, because I really don't know much about this connection. I've only recently learned that everything is so connected. I always knew that, but from foot to throat and beyond, everything is connected because of connective tissue, and the pelvic floor is at the center of it. So I want to talk to Susan today about these connections and about, let's just get started, Susan. I'm going to let you take over and maybe tell us a little bit. I'm curious to know, I understand that you are a big supporter of the arts, and I know you love music. So are you a singer? Is that at all part of this connection?
Actually, yeah, that's funny. A lot of people kind of have started asking me, what are you, a speech therapist now? And it's like, no, I'm still a physical therapist. I have a background in music as a wind instrument with the clarinet. I was never a vocalist, so I'm not a singer. I love to sing out loud, like everybody. I love to sing badly out loud. But you know, my love for music and the performing arts, you know, comes from a dance and music background. And those are the clients, I work with those clients too, as they kind of come and find me for various things that may be going on with them. The whole idea about working with a client's voice came from, just early works in learning about breathing and the pressure system is what I like to call the pressure system from the throat, well, actually from the nose and the mouth to the pelvic floor. Working, early, some, forerunners in this work are people like Mary Mastery, who her big course in the States is, if you can't breathe, you can't function, which makes sense because primally, if we're not breathing, then it's game over, So that's the, establishing the airway is the first thing in the ABCs of, CPR. And when I started kind of working with people, I realized that a lot of people were really breath holding. And that, it's a strategy.
I realized that I was just holding my breath right now. I'm sitting here listening.
It's an easy thing to do, right? But I think a lot of people actually adopt a breath holding strategy to remain continent. It's something that their brain kind of like freeze, hold your breath, don't pee, that kind of thing. And what ends up happening is it becomes an ingrained pattern and they're not aware of it. So they start holding their breath to get out of a chair. They start holding their breath to get, up and down the stairs, to get off the floor, to get out of bed. And when you do that, when you like hold your breath and, lock your diaphragm, the system underneath that, if you think about it like a big balloon or a big water balloon, if you squeeze the top of it, we're going to get a lot more pressure going down. And I think that, I started looking at that, realizing that, people are not leaking laying down on the bed doing, stuff. They're, so we teach, a lot of people will teach pelvic floor exercises with people laying down and then maybe with them sitting up. But kind of integrating the system became really important to me because I noticed that there was very little carryover from over here doing squeezes and over here doing movement. So
for you, the breath was that functional link and the connection between the glottis and the pelvic floor.
So I started kind of thinking about, how, and Julie Weep talks about it too, kind of, to, blow as you go and things like that. But people don't realize that they're holding their breath. And so they're not even really realizing when they are trying to do exhale as they move or lift how much breath holding they're still doing. So I like listening to people talk and having them talk while they move, because then they hear, if they're trying to get out of a chair, that I'll have them tell me a story, tell me the names of your kids, tell me the names of the people in your family. And they'll start, and then I'll say, go ahead and stand up while you're doing that. And, they'll say, well, Bob, Ted, bookmark. And, you know, so it's like, did you hear that? And it's like, yes. I said, I want you to be able to get out of that chair without making that, you know, that hiccup in your voice. And because, you know, the exhale means that the diaphragm is not locked. And so when we have that exhale going, that also helps automate the system. So you can, you know, take a step back, teach people to kind of like connect their pelvic floor to the breath out. You know, as we breathe out, that pelvic floor kind of lifts nice and easy. And then they can also remember that talking is an exhale. So every time they start to talk, their pelvic floor has to modulate and work a little bit. Now here's where it gets really fun. When I'm trying to get people to increase the force of their pelvic floor, increase the power, you know, the oomph of their pelvic floor, all I have to do is have them raise their pitch. So if you think about it, give it a try. So just like do a hum, like a and you can kind of feel that vibration, right? A little bit of that pelvic floor working. Now take that pitch up an octave. You know what happens to your pelvic floor? It automatically lifts, which is like the coolest thing ever. So all those people who are feeling like, I can't find my pelvic floor, I don't know where it is, I don't know how to make it work, you know, I've been doing pelvic floor exercises forever and ever and it's not changing anything. You know, this becomes kind of a lot of fun because then as they move their voice up and down on the scale, they actually have to start coordinating the pelvic floor to go with them or they can't get to those higher pitches.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun,
right? I love that connection. And actually, I had seen you do an interview with Michelle Lyons, who's also been on my YouTube channel. I love you all. And I watched part of that interview, and I was so taken by that vocalization trick that you just showed us that I actually incorporated it into a yoga video that I have in my channel. So I can link to that. I'll link to it in the video notes if anyone's interested. But that, I just use that as a very tiny little portion of that video because it's amazing, the up. And then also I believe you shared that when you go low, you can also, you feel that.
So one of the things the pelvic floor needs to learn to do is also lengthen, you know, so it doesn't just walk around being really short and tight all the time. It also has to lengthen and expand. And so with lowering the pitch, as you begin to lower the requirements of how the sound has to go through, you know, the vocal folds and the airway, the pelvic floor has to drop, but not turn off. It's not a turn off, it's a lengthening. So it's almost like as the thing comes down, it's like the pelvic floor is catching it and lowering. So almost like stepping onto a trampoline. You know, your foot doesn't automatically fly off. It kind of goes down first and then it's ready to come up, right? So it's got that expandability. So when you take the and you drop it down to a you'll feel a different vibration in your chest, but you'll also feel that pelvic floor still working. It's not a breathy, you know, kind of thing. You'll feel it be able to kind of, you know, vibrate. And the vibration, I think, is the key to maintaining that stuff. And I think when people's voices get kind of, like I like to say, craggy or craggly, I think that they've lost a lot of the vibration, and therefore that pelvic floor isn't modulating and coordinating the way that it should to maintain the breath through the airway. And so the diaphragm has to overwork, or worse, they really start overworking their throat muscles to try to modulate their pitch and their voice. And that's when you really hear people getting into trouble, and you know, the kind of the craggly voice and the, you know, almost sounds congested, like they have a sinus infection, laryngitis type voices, and they're not sick. So, you know, these people aren't sick, but you hear that and you automatically think, oh my goodness, you know, is this person older, or, you know, or you know, or what's going on with them, and why does their voice sound that way?
Yeah, how interesting. I think so. I mean, really, with the pelvic floor, as we're talking about, we're always going for a supple feeling. But it sounds like you're going that, you know, again, the pelvic floor is connected to this area up here, so we're going for suppleness everywhere, not holding our breath, being able to talk while it's kind of reminds me of when you're exercising. You want to be able to talk when you're exercising to show that you're not holding your breath, you're not, you know, you're at a good pace. And
right, so exactly. That's the key, is that you're at a pace where you can actually exercise, if you can actually talk with it. There's some automation. That means that the postural control muscles haven't gone offline, you know, and I think a lot of times that people are exercising, you know, there's times when we want to exercise at a higher pace. and we're going to have to do things a little bit differently. But if you're working on endurance, long-term endurance, you need to be able to talk as you're kind of doing that. So if you're out bike riding, if you're out walking with your friends and stuff, there should be the ability to talk and walk while you're doing that. If you're doing an all-out sprint for 2 or 3 minutes, you're not going to be able to talk. That's kind of a different thing. If you're lifting at a 1 rep max, you're probably going to have to breath hold a little bit to accomplish that. But if you're working like most people do at 60 to 70% of their 1 rep max, you should be able to do that without breath holding.
Yeah.
Because what I don't want is for people to have to build up that internal pressure so high just to do things that a human should be able to do, which is lift some things and climb stairs and move around on the floor and get out of a chair. I think Michelle was really funny. She had mentioned that, use your glutes, not your glottis. I love that, because, so don't rely on your throat muscles to breath hold to get you out of that chair. Let's, get the exhale going and, get all those postural control muscles really working, including the pelvic floor. And if you need a little oomph, let's raise the pitch a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And to reinforce again what Susan is referring to is an interview that I mentioned I watched with Michelle Lyons, and she said, I just want to repeat it because it was so good.
It was. It's a great hashtag.
Yeah, it was use your glutes, not your glottis. So use your butt muscles to get yourself up to stand, and exhale, because we want to exhale as we transition rather than holding your breath in order to stabilize your, in your perception, to stabilize you so that you can stand up. So I just want to make sure everyone got that. It was really good.
Yeah. So I think what happens is, again, a lot of this stuff is run by our neurological system, our brain. And when we perceive that things are hard, one of the things that humans do is tend to hold their breath. Yeah. And that's true even if we're stressed out about, I don't know what this person is going to say to me, after this, and we tend to hold our breath. Yeah. It's kind of a reflexive protective mechanism. We think we're going to protect ourselves by breath holding because we know we get to hold ourselves super stable when we do that, but that's not really appropriate when we're trying to be mobile. Yeah. We don't want to overuse muscles, that are going to keep us from being really mobile. Yeah. And, when we rely on that protective instinct all the time, as a primary mover, it kind of, sets up, it's kind of in conflict. And so a lot of people may have a really nice, strong pelvic floor, but they're not really pulling it into the movement system that we really need that pelvic floor to participate in. And one of the things I like to do is help people use their voice so that they can automate that system a lot faster. Because once their brain kind of connects that, when I exhale, that pelvic floor needs to be working, which is talking, then the pelvic floor has to modulate and coordinate in order for me to change my pitches up and down. So you can kind of, do funny little play games. I like to do things like la 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 da 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 ba ba ba, make funny noises high and low and in between. But here's the best thing, what's so nice about this is that I can send people out the door and their homework is to read the children's stories out loud and do all the voices.
That's so great.
The little bitty fairy and the big bad wolf, so you can get that whole modulation. But here's the more fun thing. Find your jams, turn them on in the car and go for it. Sing out loud, and sing higher and sing lower, but sing like nobody's listening. Just go and have a great time. That's great. Do that. And that's great pelvic floor exercise.
I was going to say, so is this part of your home exercise program that you may, that's wonderful. This would be a typical, would you tell people to sing a couple times a day or just whenever they feel like it? Yeah.
Whenever they feel like it. Some of the best times to do it is in the car. People always want to do their, what do they call it? I want to kegel at stoplights. And it's like, why don't you just sing? So much more fun. And you don't have to wait for a stoplight to do it. Nor do you have to think about everything as much too, which is really, kind of nice because I think we all tend to overthink in the beginning. Like, oh my gosh, is my pelvic floor working? Is it working? Is it working? And this is just kind of a nice way to automate the system. And also for us as therapists to get kind of an idea of what's actually happening inside the body. The voice is a nice window in. So you can kind of listen to people and kind of say, I wonder, that pelvic floor sounds like there's not a lot of oomph to that voice. I wonder what would happen if we got that automated in there. Can we get that person to kind of hear that and begin to get a little bit more oomph in their voice. The same thing with someone in pain, and I think all of us and everybody that's out there listening can identify with this. You can hear pain, right?
Yeah.
You can hear people in pain. If you just stop and think for a second, what does people in pain sound like?
Mm-hmm.
And I think most everybody would agree that their voice there's a strain sound to it. Like it's hard to get, words out, and it's hard to have this smooth, coordinated type of vocal experience. It's like it's being held back.
Yeah.
And, so some of that is that pelvic floor that's overactive. It's tight and it's overworking and it's protecting like crazy. The muscles are protecting or in protective mode. And when that happens, that changes the voice. It's just the same thing with back pain or, other kinds of pain too. It's that experience of pain that, begins to really strain the voice.
And so do you find that when someone is having that hyperactive pelvic floor, let's just keep it there for now, hyperactive pelvic floor, of course we can do exercises. I teach people, the reverse Kegel. We do various opening stretches and they're all wonderful. But I wonder, would it be a good addition to really focus on excursion, high and low and kind of up and down? And also, do you find that just as those muscles are tense and they're hard to let go, do you find that people have a hard time letting go of their voice too? Do they have to learn how to let go of their voice?
Yes, absolutely. And I think, and that's a great point, because the voice could be a wonderful entry, because, sometimes if the pelvic floor muscles are hyperactive and in protective mode, it may not be the best place to go. Yeah. For treatment, right? Don't be the threat that they're trying to protect against.
Yeah.
But oftentimes what I'll do, and I love the way that you talked about the range, in the beginning, like when we're teaching people, I think in the PT world, we call it down training. To our clients, we just say learning to like let go, relax, change your nervous system just a little bit. I'll use trying to get them to go into hums because of the vibration that you get. And if anybody's ever studied yoga, they can understand how important vibration is in sound and how it reverberates to us as humans. But I can get them to start humming, and then we can start lowering the pitch. And it's very comforting when you do that. It's like, we hum to our babies all the time, right?
Yeah.
We learn as little tiny humans that's a reassuring comfort safe mode.
Yeah.
And, getting people to hum to themselves is lovely, because they can begin to it begins to feed their brain that they're in a safe mode, that this is okay, that I can let go a little bit without having to do crazy things. And then once they can kind of get that nice lower pitches and they've got some good vibration to it and a little bit of oomph behind it, at lower note, which is that expanding and lengthening, then we can kind of start going up and down the range a little bit. But we can scale it depending upon how they feel, or how their muscles are. So if they're prone to those muscles grabbing and tightening up real tight, I may not take them up and down a range real soon. We may stay in the lower ranges and work there until they can kind of get that and get that coordination. And so as they're kind of going along in their life, I'll tell them, when you're starting to get stressed and wound up, pay attention to how you sound.
Yeah. Yeah.
And right there, at least just change your voice pitch. And see if that doesn't begin to bring you down and bring you out of whatever that wind up is. And it's a great tool, because talk about biofeedback.
Yeah.
That's like real biofeedback. That's my voice, my ears, my system paying attention and doing a change right at that moment, rather than having to kind of think, okay, well, I'm just gonna have to be stressed. I can't go lay down and do my breathing and that kind of stuff. It kind of allows people to do something right in the moment.
Well, it's reminding me this idea of lowering the voice, which, correct me if I'm wrong here, but lowering the voice is going to actually lower your breathing diaphragm, which is going to stimulate your vagus nerve, which is going to stimulate the parasympathetic response that relaxes everything. And
right.
Okay, I got that right. So what I'm making the connection here right now is that when I am in a good moment, a good mom moment, and my son is making me crazy, when I'm in a good mom moment, I will subconsciously, I don't mean to do this, but I will lower my voice. I will talk slowly. I will like calmly. And it's like my body's actually using my diaphragm and my voice to relax everything. Is that a true connection right there? I'm just
Yeah, I think that that's a real connection. I wasn't going to bring up vagus nerve, but everybody's kind of like gaga over the vagus, the vagus nerve right now. But just understanding that it goes both ways. The vagus nerve also, through that system, that's how we get the serotonin for our brain to make good decisions. Is it travels up from the gut via the vagus system. So the vagus can like downtrain and bring us into a calmer thing. But that also means that we have a better uptake of serotonin, so we make better decisions.
Wow.
Yes. Because serotonin is the juice we need for making good decisions. We, instead of reaching for the cookies when we're, with stress, like, stress eating, we can, use our voice to make some changes and maybe make better decisions. So I love that, thinking about, kids, because what happens is when, and this is typically something that I'll do when I'm working in patient care, is I have I'm fortunate that I have my own practice, and you can see kind of my room here. I can set it up however I want to. And one of the things we have chosen, my partner and I, to do here is to really make it a place that people feel hugged. They feel comforted when they come in the door, because there's so much medical that goes around everything. We wanted to take that piece away. And one of the tricks that I'll do with people who are really wound up and really in pain and really hurting is, I lower my voice and I talk quieter, and I can lower the lights. And there's that mirror effect, when you're around somebody who's doing that, you tend to kind of calm down yourself, and your son probably responds by changing a little bit, whether he wants to or not, he starts to change, and the dynamic begins to change, and therefore you're not ready to pull your hair out, and and he may become more reasonable, so everybody wins. But yes, it's definitely through that we call it the autonomic nervous system, which is the one that everybody says we don't really have control over. It's not because it's like our movement system. Like I can say, bend my arm and bend it. I can't automatically say lower my blood pressure. But if I breathe differently, if I talk differently, if I spend more time and do the right self-care, my blood pressure will come down. So I do have indirect control over it. And I think, some people can like meditate enough to where their blood pressure drops and their heart rate drops. We've all heard those stories. And so that's how you work with the autonomic nervous system, is you can bring it up when you need it, and you can bring it down when you don't need it to be quite so high.
It's fascinating. And that really goes along with, again, that pelvic floor-glottis connection, is you can bring it up, you can bring it down with and it's connecting right in with the autonomic nervous system. I love this. Oh my gosh, I could talk with you forever, but I do want to respect everyone's time. So if we could wrap up with maybe, let's just give a top tip for someone who has pelvic floor. Let's actually leave it at dysfunction as far as they're having some prolapse, some incontinence issues, that kind of thing. Maybe some top tips, 2 tips or something like that you would give someone to use on their own.
Yes. So 2 tips. Number 1 is use your voice and talk while you move, and make sure there's not a break in your voice when you move. So there's not a, kind of thing as you're kind of getting up off the chair or getting out of bed or getting up off the floor, things like that. That can really begin to automate and pull your pelvic floor into those movements, because oftentimes when people leak or they feel that heaviness from prolapse is when they're struggling to make transitional movements, getting out of the car, standing on my feet too long, getting out of a chair, those kinds of things. So that's a really great thing to do. The other one is just practice with your voice going up and down. And if you feel like that, you feel a little bit vulnerable, like you're going to have some urgency frequency, or you're going to be leaking a little bit, I think people kind of feel that vulnerability around that time when that occurs. That's a time where you can just kind of practice with your pitch and raise your voice up a little bit and see if you can, bring your pelvic floor up and bring it online just a little bit more. But it'll take you out of that breath holding strategy that we all tend to do when we're afraid of leaking.
Amazing. Wonderful. We're going to have a lot more chatty Cathy women out there right now who are just going to be talking a lot more.
That's right. That's right. Find your voice.
I love it. It's wonderful. Well, let's leave it there. But please tell people where they can connect with you, how they can find you.
Okay. So I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My website is embody pt.com. So it's embody-pt.com. That's the website address. You can reach me by email at susan@embody-pt.com. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So
Great. Wonderful.
love to connect with you.
And I'll put the links in the video notes to her website. And please do connect with Susan. She's, like I said, wonderful. This has been fantastic. So thank you again. I'm going to sign off now, and we'll see you later, everyone. Remember, as always, eat clean, move every day, and you will shine brighter. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Bye, Susan.